And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
Hey, look, we're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I don't know why Mike Ekeler decided to leave Tennessee for Nebraska. Maybe he just wanted to be closer to home. Maybe he benefited from a pretty good year when you dig into the numbers on special teams. I don't think he got the job because of the way he coached up Tennessee's linebackers in pass coverage. I think I could throw that out there. I feel like I know exactly who could make this coaching staff better, and we'll dig into that today's tough question. Also, in honor of the trade that went down in the NBA, which you probably heard about ad nauseum, which players are tradable? Would you trade Nico for any of the guys that we're going to mention in a little bit? I don't think you would. UT basketball, beating Florida or losing to Kentucky. Which is the greatest window into this basketball team's soul this day in Tennessee sports history? Steve Hamer, the former Vol, will join us as well. Stat of the day for recruits to watch. And we'll have that on Off the Hook Sports later today. Caleb Calhoun, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm well. So do we want to share what's happened to us this morning? You got locked out of your house, and I'm having internet issues, so we'll see where this goes. But I think we're all good now. How about you?
Yeah. I think we're okay. You know what's funny? It's like I was freaking out because I couldn't get the show. But I also, guys, in case you don't know, I walk my dog before the show, and like I take my son to daycare, then I come back to walk my dog. So I took my son to daycare, locked myself out. I come back. As freaked out as I was on the show, my heart was just breaking because the dog was like barking in the window, just waiting for me to come in, and didn't understand why I couldn't get in the house to get him.
So you're kind of teasing the dog by being out there. You should just had a can of Alpo and holding it. I'll be there in a little bit. No, that's fantastic. I learned something about Caleb too through our texting because I was joking that we should do jazz and have a fun segment, just talk about what you guys want to talk about. We're going to do that. Caleb Calhoun was an all-state jazz pianist. That's pretty impressive.
I was a very good pianist growing up. I was actually classically trained, but I would always get in trouble doing classically trained music because I like to riff and do my own thing. And then I joined jazz band in high school, and then they untrained me classical music. They're like, Caleb, just do what you want with how the music feels. I'm like, I can do that now? And man, I was superb at that. Dude,
all right.
Epic.
Can we get video or audio evidence of that?
Maybe.
I want to hear it at some point. Call your mom.
How about you just see me play it? I'll give you the audio evidence of that.
Oh, you can still rock it? Like I played trombone back in the day, and I couldn't pick up a trombone to do anything with it.
I need like okay, Michael, you know how Michael Jordan needed like about a month to train to get back into basketball shape? I need like a little bit to train to get back into piano shape. Give me like a week.
Oh, let me give you know what you need if you're going to talk about Michael Jordan? You need me to say, I don't think Caleb can really play the piano because I take that personal.
I took that personally.
He said that 18 million times. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. As we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. We'll tell you more about them as we move along. Today's tough question is now.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker's Hook Sports.
Mike Ekeler, rank that in terms of a loss. It's a massive loss. My goodness, they just lost just short of Josh Heupel. But F is, I think everything's going to be okay, because I think it's going to be okay. And as a matter of fact, I've got some ideas on how to make this staff better. Hit like and subscribe now. We greatly appreciate that. So, Caleb, where did you rank, or where do you rank the Ekeler loss?
I mean, the only reason I don't say F, if I'm being honest with you, Dave, is because I don't.
Harsh.
Well, no, because Mike Ekeler's like motivational factors I'll put some value on, but like from an X's and O's standpoint, I don't think he brought much to the table. I mean, he was almost. I mean, it's kind of like, and you never like to do this, but whenever you hear about the coach that's really good at motivating his players, that's almost code for he ain't the greatest X's and O's guy, isn't it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I think it's a C loss. I mean, I do think he had a year last year with special teams, particularly in the return game. Not so much in coverage. They were about average. I would have to say it's a C. I'm going to go right down the middle here, because I think there are guys out there that Tennessee can replace. And it was hard to get Ekeler. It was hard to get anybody to sign up on this staff at one point. But, Caleb, I do believe that they can actually upgrade the position. And let's open our minds for a second. Let's forget the fact that he coached outside linebacker. Do you need, honestly, 2 linebacker coaches when you only play 2 at the same time out of your base? Will somebody help me with that? You can call this whatever you want, but I'll go ahead and throw the name out there. I would call a guy like Trooper Taylor. And some of you may not be old enough to remember him, which makes me feel old, but there's an excitable guy that relates to his players very well. And Caleb, I'll go ahead and throw this in. He coached a lot of Tennessee special teams that he never got credit for. I don't know that he would necessarily pick up the phone, but we'll throw it out there. That's who I would hire tomorrow. He would have been the first call I made. He loves Knoxville. He basically took a little break. He was still coaching at Arkansas State. To give you all a little background. Very excitable guy, coached receivers and running backs for Tennessee. Wanted the associate head coach title, offensive coordinator. He did not get that, so he went to Oklahoma State. And then at that point, his wife wanted to pursue her graduate degree. I believe she's a psychologist. Don't quote me on that. And his son wanted to play at Arkansas State. So he kind of took a little bit of a coaching sabbatical. He still coached for Arkansas State. Don't get me wrong. But since then, he's decided, I'm going to run up the chain again and do something that most people can't do, be successful twice. So he's been at Duke. He's the associate head coach right now at Texas A&M, where he coaches running backs. You can call it what you want to, and you have, Caleb. Running back's kind of a glorified position where you want a great recruiter. I don't know who you shipped around, or if you just want to call him offensive coach, OC. I don't care. But that's a way to make your staff better, and he can slay it in recruiting. And I know there was a lot of whispers, how's he having so much success? There was no cheating going on. It was just he was hot, and he got hot at Tennessee, and he works it tirelessly. A man who doesn't drink or smoke, and I'm not judging anybody by that, but he is an incredible coach, and I think that would be who I would call.
I mean, I'm actually totally with you on this sense. If you could get him on a deal, I think the most important thing on this, and I'm going to be honest, Dave, the most important thing is to save money. And I think that's why they let Mike Ekeler walk to begin with. His contract was up. And I say that with all the respect in the world for Trooper Taylor. Look, I'm one that felt, I thought he jumped too soon in 2007, but I thought Philip Fulmer should have made the offer immediately when Cutcliffe left. My understanding when I was covering Tennessee at that time, and you know more than I do, he was studying under Cutcliffe. I'm sorry?
Not necessarily. Go ahead.
But my understanding is Trooper Taylor was basically, Cutcliffe took him under his wing to like develop him to be the next offensive coordinator. And Philip Fulmer, for some God knows why reason, delayed his decision. I'm like, if he's studying under Cutcliffe's wing, I don't know why Fulmer doesn't just promote him. Because also, guys, if you don't remember, if Trooper Taylor's promoted to offensive coordinator, Tennessee likely keeps Terrell Pryor as the quarterback that year.
A blast from the past.
Yeah, right. And they likely have a lot of success. So I was a fan of that promotion. Trooper Taylor now, though, as a running backs coach and assistant head coach at Texas A&M, is going to command a lot more money. if you're hiring him to be an outside linebackers and special teams coordinator, I don't think he's worth the money, Dave. I'm sorry. I just don't. And
but listen to what you're telling me. This has gotten this with NIL. I know that you're thinking that in the back of your mind, right? That's where you want to feed the money. You want the Jimmies and Joes that helped Ekeler have a great return game. It was more about the Jimmies and Joes than it was the X's and O's. So you're telling me that that's where you're going to save money. I mean, what number would you throw out there in hopes of landing him?
Well, how much was Mike Ekeler making last year?
Well, I'm looking that up, but I can tell you that he's going to want certain things like the associate head coach to his name. He's not going to take less money. He's not going to take a discount. And it's not that he's poor. It's just pride. That's not.
No, okay. I just looked up. Ekeler's made $575,000. I'm sorry. I don't really want to pay above 500 for anybody right now as an assistant. Tennessee just upped Tim Banks' salary. Mike Ekeler's whole contract. I mean, like, which for those who don't know, in this age of NIL, that is probably worth one superstar or two starters, $500,000 at this point. And
that's a gamble, Caleb. You know what you're getting with Taylor.
I don't, but you're asking him to be a special teams coordinator. I don't think there's a lot of value in a special teams coordinator in today's game, unless you have somebody that's like Alan Lowry or Joe Avisano, like you brought up yesterday. But even then, it's 1/12 of the game. Like it's a small part of the game.
I agree with that. I don't care where you put him. Make him an offensive coach. It doesn't matter. You can just call him the OC offensive coach. So I don't care. He could do special teams if he wants to, but to bring him in and to be that same type of fiery leader that Ekeler had, probably with not as much coarse language, but also the fact that he can step into South Florida or Texas and recruit like the Dickens. And that's what Tennessee needs. So you're telling me, and I want to give you a second to respond to this. You're telling me right now that you think Tennessee's coaching staff is good enough to win a national championship from a recruiting standpoint. That's what you're telling me. Today's tough question. Let's go ahead and put that up on the poll. Would you be disappointed, and you can phrase it however you'd like, would you be disappointed if Tennessee just hired from within? Because I think you and I can agree that would be the worst. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
Okay, so they've hovered right around the 10 to 12 mark under Josh Heupel. Do you believe that's good enough from a recruiting standpoint to win a championship?
This day and age in college football, yes. And more importantly, I totally disagree with you. I would be totally fine if Tennessee promoted from within to replace Mike Ekeler. I think this is a throwaway position job. Okay, honestly, just a recruiter situation. I think the money to pay players is more important than the coaches to coach them at this day and age in college football now. And I don't really think – here's where you could sell me on Trooper Taylor. If you got rid of Joey Halsley, if you got rid of a couple of staff members, I could be sold on Trooper Taylor.
I mean, seems like a nice guy, but I would make that move in a heartbeat.
So then let's talk about that. But just to replace Mike Ekeler, no. You'd have to pay him too much money. And I don't think it's worth paying an entire staff that much money. You got to, if you're going to do that, you need to unload a couple of staff members and hire other guys on the cheap. I mean, money is a thing now in college football. You don't want to overspend on coaching. I think for the longest time, and let's call it what it is. Let's just take this on a broader scale for a minute, Dave. We have agreed that over maybe the past 10, 15 years, coaching salaries have gotten way out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
That happened because players weren't getting paid. So all the money was being spent on coaches to try to get the best coach that could get the best players. I think we're not paying attention to this long term, But the long-term trend in college football with NIL being a factor now is coaching salaries are not going to grow at the rate they've been growing. And those are going to slow dramatically because that money's got to be spent on players. And at some point, people are going to realize the players are more valuable than the coaches this day and age in college football. A general manager, there's going to be an NIL general manager that goes and like recruits and buys players soon enough. And that will be more valuable than any coach in college football. And I think that's about 10 years within the next 10 years. No longer are the coaches the biggest stars on their college football teams, quite honestly. And I mean, I think you are entering kind of an NFL era where the players make the organization, not the coaches. And with that in mind, I don't think you replace an on-field position coach with a guy who would command even $200,000 more dollars. That's $200,000 you can spend on somebody. So I can't go there right now. And I'm
from what I've been told, it's going to be LaVorn Hartman. He's a defensive analyst right now. I'd be shocked if he didn't get it. I would, though, like to take a look at the poll question and see if people are on board with me, because that would be hiring from within. And that's just not – I think that sends a really bad signal to your fan base. What's the poll question at now? What do we have that cooking at?
Everybody agrees with me. Would you be disappointed if Tennessee just hired from within to replace Mike Ekeler? 78% say no, they wouldn't be disappointed, just like me. So, Dave, you're alone on this, buddy.
Oh, it's not the first time. I'm sticking by it, though. I think you can make a semi-splash hire if you go out and get the wrong guy. I don't care if it turns into an offensive top of position. But let me ask you this, going back to what you said. Would you fire Joey Halsley and hire Trooper Taylor tomorrow, or let's just say any offensive coordinator you see out there? Do you think this offense needs a fresh set of eyes? Because I do, big time.
Yes, I actually would. I would in a heartbeat. And I know people will be like, well, Trooper Taylor's not experienced in the spread, or Trooper Taylor doesn't coach quarterbacks. I don't care. Josh Heupel is experienced in Josh Heupel's offense, and Josh Heupel coaches quarterbacks. So I don't really think Joey Halsley was ever that necessary. I would hire Trooper Taylor, and I would just make him the offensive coordinator and even make him the quarterback's coach. Hell, Josh Heupel's one doing that anyway. And yes, he becomes a fresh set of eyes. And as time goes on and Trooper Taylor gets more familiar with Josh Heupel's offense, my understanding about Trooper is he's a very fast learner. So if he picks up Josh Heupel's if he were to pick up Josh Heupel's offense, I think that Trooper Taylor would become a very good, it may take a year, but he would eventually become a very good fresh set of eyes for this offense.
Today's tough question, again, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Nobody like them. It's time for Hot or Cold, and that is brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. So there were a couple of players, like an Anthony and maybe a Luka or somebody got traded in the NBA. Do you
Uh-oh, Dave, you kind of came in and out real quick.
Now?
Yeah, can you say what you were saying?
Yes. Okay, so hot or cold trades, if that ever happened or could happen in college football. But the big trade in the NBA was who? I know you're a big NBA guy.
Yes, Anthony Davis got traded to the Mavericks for Luka Doncic, and there were a bunch of other small players. And Dalton Connect, by the way, was almost part of that trade. Was almost part of that package deal, but he ended up not being part of it.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been good. Okay, so as far as what players you would trade, are we going to agree? And the best player, right?
Are you saying, are we going to agree that Nico Iamaleava is the most important?
Well, most best. Is he the best player that Tennessee has on its roster? Because Anthony Davis probably was the best now that LeBron's 120 years old. And Luka was as well. So let me ask you this. Is Nico that guy? Could he be a Herschel Walker for you if there was trading in college football?
See, I would say, and I know you think I'm crazy because he didn't get a lot of that he didn't show this last year, but I think it was more because he just didn't get enough touches. But I would say if he gets his full potential, Mike Matthews is the best player to his position on Tennessee. I still think Mike Matthews has a rare talent at receiver. He wasn't able to showcase it last year. I
agree. So let's have a little fun here. Hot or cold? I'm going to give you some names of guys that are out there. Now, he's not in the SEC anymore. That would be a tough one to turn down, I think, if you're Tennessee. And I like Nico a lot, but Beck's done more in his career, more experience. But experience, stop talking about Nico. So cold, Caleb. I'm going to save the best for Ryan Williams. I wouldn't trade for a quarterback for a compensatory pick down the line.
Yeah, there's nobody I'd really trade for. Like, I wouldn't trade for Ryan Williams. For the record, what people are missing, because they were like, look at what Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith did in these other systems. The truth is, they wouldn't have done that in Tennessee's system as a freshman because of what Tennessee's system requires of receivers. So I wouldn't trade for Ryan Williams because I think Tennessee's actually got better receivers. It's just there's adjustment period in this offense that doesn't. It was about the system more than it was Mike Matthews versus Ryan Williams, for instance.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade an above average quarterback for Jerry Rice or Randy Moss. I just think that you've got your quarterback, you know who it is, there's stability there. So that's cold. So you're cold on that, you would not trade for him.
Yes, I'm cold on that.
Hot or cold?
Cold. I'm never trading for a running back. Ever.
All right, so we're having trouble finding one, and you and I have been we've been critical, haven't we? But we're having trouble finding one. I got one though that is a slam dunk. All right, Whit Weeks really did some research on these.
Well, Whit Weeks was a first-team All-SEC linebacker out of LSU last year. I'm gonna go here. Yeah. I think Tennessee needs some linebacker help, and I think you can replace Nico with George McIntyre plus upgrade at linebacker. And also, if you get some compensatory picks, like you say, like Whit Weeks plus, like, I don't know, 3 5-star recruits that LSU signs next year or something like that. I would actually do that trade. I'm not going to lie to you. I would trade for an all SEC linebacker that's elite in pass coverage. You're not going to get that much of a drop off from Nico to George McIntyre, in my opinion. So
that would be shameful if he doesn't take a big step in an off season and a full season under his belt. And you have to give him credit the way he played the last half of the season. I'm not trading for a linebacker. Besides that, they only played 2. He might not ever get on the field. Can't go with you there.
I'm going there. I would trade for Whit Weeks. I would trade Nico Iamaleava for Whit Weeks, not straight up. I would expect some compensation elsewhere. Like, I guess the way you get compensation in college is like an extra $5 million in NIL dollars too. Like, something like that.
Who knows? We could ask whoever runs the sport, but we're really not sure who that is. Okay, so next, the one that I think we'll all agree on, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
I'm going to go there. I'm going there. Arch Manning. Caleb, I'm hot on that. I look, and I like Nico a lot. I think he'll be a top 5-ish quarterback either this year or if he stays another year. I think he has that ability. But a guy that could step in right away, Arch Manning, I make that trade.
Okay.
Hot on that. By the way, I am hot, by the way. Go ahead.
I think Manning reads the field better from what I saw last year. He's much better at reading the field. I think he's probably more accurate on his short throws over the middle, but there's 2 reasons I would keep Nico. And by the way, I think those 2 things are going to make Manning the better NFL quarterback. Arch Manning's going to be the better NFL quarterback. But in Josh Heupel's system, Dave.
If you say the word lab, shutting her down.
No, I can't. I'm eating crow on that.
Okay.
But Nico still throws a better deep ball.
I haven't seen enough of Arch Manning. That's the issue. We haven't seen as much out of Arch as we would like to. I feel like it takes 4 or 5 games for defensive coordinators to get a book on you.
There's another factor.
He just kind of did it in reverse last year.
There's another factor with Nico. Now, again, people aren't going to understand this because of how often Nico held the ball too long trying to make a play. But if you actually look at the way Nico throws the ball, his release is actually pretty quick. And it's quicker than Arch Manning's.
No, and I think he has better arm talent. I think Nico has better arm talent as a whole. I think he can throw it from different angles.
And that quick release, how crucial is that in this system, Dave? The quick release.
Out. All right, better runner between the two.
Nico might be the better runner. He just looks weird when he does it. I think they both are. I actually think they're both solid but awkward runners if you look at them, because like they're both so tall. It just looks weird when they're running, honestly.
No, agreed. All right, so I'm putting this on the poll question right now. Would you trade Nico for Arch Manning? Do you think we'll ever get to the day where there actually is trading? Because I never thought we'd be where we are now.
No, I didn't either. We might. I mean, and honestly, it might just be something. It might be like a simple agreement of like, hey, you cut this player's NIL money so we can take him, and we'll cut this player's NIL money so you can take him. Okay. Like, I mean, this is not crazy, guys.
But do you realize how much our views have changed? I mean, these guys used to be local heroes, and now it feels like it's not just in Knoxville, but it feels more like it's just mercenary time.
Okay, but see, here's the funny, people keep talking about that. I actually think you're going to have bigger local heroes going forward with the program, because here, like I said, college football is becoming more player centric. So at the end of the day, Dave, you talk about local heroes. Let's talk about all the heroes at Alabama during the Nick Saban era. All those stars: Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith. At the end of the day, none of them outshine Nick Saban, right?
Great.
Nowadays, if that same dynasty happened today, those players would outshine Nick Saban. The players are going to start outshining the coaches because the players matter more now, particularly when there's so much parity in the sport.
How close are we to seeing a player make more money than the coach that's coaching him? I mean, it happens all the time in the pros. Could we see that one day?
Yes, I would be doing that right now if I were a school. I would be spending more on players. I mean,
well, wait, I guess Nico already does. We know he's making at least $2 million.
Yeah, I don't think he's making more than Josh Heupel, though.
Well, not Heupel. I was just talking about if you want to go Halsley.
Yes. Oh, he's definitely making more than assistants. No, I'm going out. I would be paying my players more than Josh Heupel, my star players. Honestly, that's
all this money from.
I would not be hiring coaches for $10 million. I'm dead serious on this. I've been saying this from the start. There is a Moneyball era coming to college football. There is a program. I don't know who, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know where. There will be a program, Dave, that will realize if we cheap out on our head coaching hire, just go really cheap and use all that money to buy players, then that coach can go win a national title. I mean, I'd give like, okay, you're UCF. I'd give Ed Orgeron a call. Hey, want to come coach UCF for $1 million? And then I take the other $7 million and buy players with it.
Wait, did we just miss something? Would you hire Ed Orgeron to be your defensive line and special teams? Really, that's always
no, because Ed Orgeron would demand. Ed Orgeron would not come to Knoxville for anything more than a certain amount of money, because he's sitting on a good bit of money right now that LSU paid him to, hang out with 20-year-old girls in Destin. Ed Orgeron ain't leaving that, okay?
Well, but you know how some of these guys are, how they're wired. They don't feel like they're useful in the world if they're not able to yell at an 18, 19-year-old kid.
Ed Orgeron doesn't care. He said it. He's like, I was a coach for 6 years. I'm good. He got his national championship, and he's like, I'm out. I am good, guys. I don't care anymore, okay? And no, he's not. Like, he wants to be taking those pictures, laying in bed shirtless with those, 19-year-old models like he's been doing. So why would he give that up to come coach in Knoxville? That ain't happening. So I'm saying, if I were you,
some of these dudes are wired like this. I'm telling you,
he wouldn't give it up for $200,000, which is what I'd be paying this coach. I'm serious on this, and I'm so dead set on it. I wouldn't be shelling out that much money for coaches. It's going to be the NFL way. Think about this, Dave, with the Chiefs. Look at the Chiefs dynasty right now. Do you consider it like Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce? Andy Reid's the third most famous person of those three guys.
Definitely.
The coach takes a massive step back. This is the 49ers dynasty with Bill Walsh. People knew more about Joe Montana than Bill Walsh. People knew more about Troy Aikman than Jimmy Johnson. People knew more about, people knew more about Mean Joe Green than they did Chuck Noll. Like, the coaches are forgettable with these eras, but the players aren't. College football's going that way.
All right, give us a rundown because I want to share a couple of these comments, if I may, and definitely want to get to Timothy as he supports Quincy Calhoun's college fund, who is 8 months old today. Pretty awesome. Time flies.
He is. Wait, you asking for a rundown of the rest of the show? Sorry.
No. I'm sorry. I just want to. We've had Timothy's been nice enough to throw us some money for Quincy Calhoun's college fund. So let's hit those real quick.
Yeah, let's address what Timothy said. Yes, because Timothy says I'd go after a JUCO head coach, like Coach JB. Timothy, who's Coach JB, but in general, actually, Timothy, I agree. I would go after a JUCO head coach. I would go after a guy who's not going to ask for a lot of money. Dave, how much is Josh Heupel gets paid? What, $9.5 million right now?
Yes, this comment's pretty funny. Can't trade a quarterback that looks like Jack Sparrow. All right. He's what is the question? What's Heupel making?
Yeah, $9.5 million, right?
Yeah, I think he's right in there.
Okay. Say you go hire a head coach say you fire Josh Heupel tomorrow. I'm not saying you're going to. Say when his contract's up, you don't renew it. And you go hire a head coach for $1 million. You just saved $8.5 million, right?
Yeah, but you're going to be playing in front of him in an empty stadium.
Wait. Are you? Wait. How many players could you buy with $8.5 million given the NIL budgets today?
Well, I'm going to give you two words that tears apart your theory. Not that it's in some eras it may be possible, but Jimmy Sexton's never going to let that happen. I can promise you that.
Well, then I'm not calling a coach connected to Jimmy Sexton. I don't care. I would hire a high school coach. I'll call the guy. I'll call some local Knox County high school football coach. Hey, want to make $1 million to coach Tennessee? Yeah, sure. Why not? Bring him in and then spend the other $8.5 million on players. I'm winning a national championship every year at that point because the Jimmys and Joes are actually outweighing the X's and O's more than ever before.
Timothy with a point too, and I'm going to pull some others up. You don't have to pay us just for acknowledging your comments. We appreciate you being a part of the program, but I think he had some good ones. Timothy says, I don't think Heupel teaches his quarterback to read defenses like Cutcliffe or the Mannings. That's absolutely true. That's why Arch didn't give Tennessee much of a look. Now, you can win in different ways. I don't want that to sound disparaging towards Josh Heupel, but they wanted their son, and I say the Mannings, they wanted their son to get ready for the NFL. They wanted him to be able to read defenses. He's just not asked to do that. And
this is going to be the future of the Mannings forever because Arch Manning, the way he was treated, and not the way he was treated, what Archie Manning went through in New Orleans, those 11 years, which you're talking about a guy that was a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback stuck in the worst situation in NFL history. As you know, Dave, Archie Manning has gone out of his way to make sure his kids and grandkids and his family never deals what he dealt with in the NFL, right?
Yes. No, I'd never honestly thought about your Manning conspiracy theory, the Peyton Manning, the one I covered before you said it, and that was the Jets had the number one pick.
The Jets had the number one pick.
Okay.
They're one of the incompetent franchises out there. Archie Manning has been very big on his kids not playing for pathetic, moribund, incompetent franchises.
Man, how the tone has changed. Dylan says, I'd trade Nico for Arch every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Did you ever think this would happen? It's only been 7 months since we were talking about him being a Heisman finalist.
Being created in a lab to run this offense and have like the Cam Newton effect for Gus Malzahn. Yes, I know. I mean, no, I shouldn't have gone Cam Newton. That's the greatest single season a college player has ever had. People will say Joe Burrow. No, Cam Newton. I would take Cam Newton 2010 over Joe Burrow 2019 all day and every day on Sunday. Joe Burrow had a lot more help. But Nico, I get your point, Dylan, but we're still putting a lot on him that wasn't all on him last year. Football's more complimentary than ever right now because of the lack of depth that most teams have because of the NIL era. And that's, I mean, you know, Nico as a first-year starter is dealing with his blindside tackle has a sprained ankle. His go-to receiver is coming off a broken leg and can't get separation. And his slot receiver is dealing with a separated shoulder and can't get separation. And I mean, that was kind of impossible for him to deal with last year, wasn't it?
Yes, I think that was very impossible. Portions of the program brought to you by our great friends at the Hemp House. The Hemp House is fantastic because it's the premier hemp dispensary all online. You don't have to go in and maybe buy something you don't want anybody to know about. The premier hemp dispensary online. Use a promo code HOOK for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. Also want to thank our friends, Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. I want to remind you that if you haven't signed up yet, all you have to do is be a member of this channel. We're killing the Patreon thing. Let's just not even discuss that. But if you're a member of this channel, you're going to get a welcome gift that can be a t-shirt, a gift certificate to Hound Dogs of Knoxville. I was there the other day. Just incredible selection. So your membership is going to pay for itself. And then we are going to begin our weekly drawings again. As now the holidays are behind us. And the first thing we're giving away is over my shoulder. It's a mini autographed helmet signed by one of Caleb's all-time favorite players, Sean Henderson. Coming up on the program.
One of college football's all-time favorite players. Last time you checked, he's going to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, I like him. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have shot. I think he's fantastic. Great guy, too.
Dave thinks Albert Hainsworth was a better guy than John Henderson.
Well, definitely not a better guy, but maybe a better talent. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't think John Henderson has ever taken a dirty mop bucket and dumped it on a homeless man that I'm aware of.
I didn't know Albert Hainsworth did that. Of all of his shenanigans, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, and videoed it so that then he could get in trouble for it. Not
the brightest guy either.
No. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. Just go to rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. And almost completed my buying process with Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. They walked me through it. I'm so excited. I can't wait to show off pictures of my new Bronco. Well, it'll be new to me. But in 2 minutes, we'll be right back. And then we're going to talk some basketball with Steve Hamer. Also, Tennessee's transfer class ranked worst in the SEC. Big deal or not, I'm going to tell you why I'm not that concerned about that whatsoever. Stay tuned. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Look Sports.
Hey, Ted, it's time to save some cash during New Year's Dash.
Savings is my prime directive. Let's see what you got, Nick.
Right now, you can save up to $10,000 on new Ford F-150s. Beat that, Ted.
Most impressive, but how about 0% for 72 months on Ford Lightning or Ford Mustang Mach-E?
Ted Russell Ford has huge savings on whatever you're looking for.
This checks out.
Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale.
From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, welcome back to the program. Caleb's studying his phone. What are you looking at?
Sorry, I was pulling up a stat because someone tried to tell me on our message board, tried to say that Cam Newton had help with the great defense. He did not have great defense at Auburn in 2010. You need to go back and do the research.
Can't take these things personally, Caleb.
I take contradictions personally.
All right, this is time for stat of the day. As we get to that right now, stat of the day brought to you by our fantastic friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily updates, just go to facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN. You'll have all the info you need. And if you want to stop by, I would highly recommend that as well. Stat of the day is, how about right now?
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb Calhoun, what do you got? Stat of the day on February 4th. I keep forgetting to point that out. So if you're watching like on Friday, you're like, it didn't happen. Caleb's wrong again.
Well, this stat is kind of interesting because over the weekend, Tennessee's win over Florida is the Vols' largest win over an AP top 5 team in school history.
Is that right? Now,
Yes.
I heard another stat. Did you see this one? The first time in college basketball history that a team beat 5 ranked opponents.
No. It's this was the stat I gave you. This was the stat I did yesterday.
Okay.
What was Tennessee was the first team in college basketball history to win 6 straight at home against AP top 5 teams. And yeah, it's so there's a lot. We'll have a few more stats related to this Tennessee Florida game on Saturday over the week, because honestly, it's kind of a rarity on how Tennessee dominated Florida on Saturday basketball.
So we are going to talk some hoops. Steve Hamer will join us momentarily. Let me get one last update on that poll question, if I may, Caleb. Do people still think I'm dumb as usual?
Well, would you trade Nico for Arch? 52% say yes, it's time. 48% say no, Nico is our guy. Wow. Wow.
That's very telling. We have a very intelligent audience. I think that is a little bit disconcerting. Let's get to yes, go ahead.
Do you think a little bit of this isn't like, do you think there isn't a subliminal like love of the Manning family too?
Well, yeah, it'd be a great story. That's why I picked him. That was the one I came up with. You came up with the other 3. But you still...
let's play a game with just a couple more quarterbacks real quick, and I just want to know your thoughts. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Would you trade Nico for Garrett Nussmeier?
I would not, but I'm leaning on the eye test. Garrett's done more as far as productivity, but I just look at Nico and think he's more talented. And the eye test is the dumbest thing to go off of. I'm aware. I'm guilty. Sorry.
What about Lenora Sellers in South Carolina?
No. I don't think he's even close to Nico's level.
I think I think I agree with you on both of those.
Okay, let's expand this a little bit outside the SEC, not to get caught up on this because we got to move on. We're going to talk Tennessee basketball coming up, but let's expand this a little bit. Carson Beck.
No, mainly just for chemistry. I think Carson Beck is too much of a diva. I think Carson Beck, we talked about this, he acts like Johnny Manziel without the talent.
Yep. I think there's an awful lot of truth to that. So anybody else that just stands out that just blows your skirt up, to use a 50s phrase?
Blows my skirt up. DJ Lagway. What about DJ Lagway at Florida? The way they finished the season last year.
I like Nico's talent more. So I don't guess there is one. I might differ with you on Beck. I might there just because I think he's perhaps a little bit more clutch than Nico. But as far as talent, I think Nico has all the guys that we just mentioned.
As far as Heupel's insistence on valuing chemistry over everything, I mean, Carson Beck would just take that to the woodshed.
Yeah, that wouldn't go well at all. All right, so it's time for What the H, and we're going to talk some Tennessee basketball now. It is basketball season, brought to you in part by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, a wide range of products and services locally owned and operated. What the H?
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, we've had an interesting trio of runs with Tennessee basketball, of games, I guess I should say, a run of games. One, they almost beat the #1 team in the nation at their place in Auburn. Caleb and I differ on how that should be viewed a little bit. But the two games I want to focus on now would be the loss to Kentucky and then lost to Kentucky and beating Florida. So my question for you, Caleb, is which was more telling, that loss to Kentucky or the win against Florida? Because you could make an argument either way. You could point to the loss to Kentucky and say they're flawed, or you could point to the win over Florida and say this is one of the better teams in the nation. Do you believe more or less in Tennessee basketball after the last two games?
I still actually believe less. I think the loss to Kentucky is a bigger deal than the win at Florida. And by the way, people are going to think that's crazy because let's talk about the inconsistencies. Kentucky was lower rated than Florida. They were 12th. Florida was 5th. And then Kentucky on Saturday after beating Tennessee, they went and lost to Arkansas. This shows how wild the SEC is this year. But here's why the Kentucky loss is bigger than the Florida win. I think the Florida win had a lot to do with Tennessee just getting lucky that the Gators were shooting so poorly that day. That happens in basketball. I know you're not the biggest fan of him, and I'm not either with the way he treated the media, but there's a great interview with Bobby Knight, Dave, of all people, back in 1987 when Indiana, they beat Northwestern by 51 points and then needed overtime to beat them on the road. And the reporter was like, kind of amazes me that, there can be that much of a gap. And Knight's response was, if it amazes you, you don't know basketball. and his point is, a lot of times the difference on the margins in basketball are not what you actually see on the court. Sometimes, maybe you play a little bit better, another team plays a little bit worse, and you shoot a really, really good percentage, and it makes a huge difference. Florida shot a horrible percentage on Saturday against Tennessee, one that they don't do every time, and they wouldn't do going forward. That had more to do, and I know Tennessee didn't have Zakai Ziegler and Igor Milicic. It didn't matter. Florida shot horribly. I think Florida would have lost to any SEC team they played on Saturday. Any SEC team they played, whether they were at home or on the road. It was just one of those games where they shot an absolutely abysmal clip. Tennessee didn't even play that great offensively. Chaz Lanier answered the moment, but nobody else did. They just were benefiting from Florida having one of those games which Tennessee has had in the past, where they just, everything they threw up missed. And I don't think that has much to do with how Tennessee played against Florida, honestly. I think you can celebrate it, be happy with the win. And yes, you give the defense some credit. But Dave, you know this. I mean, defense can only go so far when a team's not shooting well from three. Sometimes the team's like that. That's because if the team's actually hitting their shots, there's no defense you can play. There's no defense you can play against Golden State when Steph Curry's hitting his shots. There's absolutely no defense in the world that's going to stop that. So
go ahead.
So basically, I think beating Florida was just about how poorly Florida shot the ball, whereas Kentucky was a back and forth game, and that's where you saw some major offensive issues for Tennessee. I think the offense for Tennessee was good against Florida. I mean, they only scored 64 points. It's just the defense, the offense for Florida was just that god awful.
Okay, We appreciate you, Steve, for reminding everybody to smash the like button. We would greatly appreciate that. And we're going to go to comments now and again more often than we have in the past because I really like our group here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would certainly love that. But Caleb, to me, the loss to Kentucky is still the overwhelming one because there's no presence. There was nothing there down low when they needed a front court presence. And it was all about just chucking threes. And I don't believe you can stay hot 64, 32, 16, 8, 4. I don't believe you can stay hot in 6 straight games and shoot your way out of a scoring drought. I think Tennessee's probably a 16 seed at best at this point, unless something changes. And we've got
wait, you mean Sweet 16 team. You don't mean 16 seed.
No, Sweet 16. I'm sorry. Sweet 16. Yes. I think that to me is the high water mark, unless I see something very different in a couple of weeks. And I don't want to get too down on a team when the season still has a month to be played, but that's where I am right now. Our poll question, I want to get your thoughts on that, Caleb, but our poll question, would you trade Nico for Arch? 51% say no, Nico's our guy. 47% say yes, it's time. It's just been a year, guys. How do you feel about the Vols past week? Sorry for the typo. Yes, UK loss was it for me. No, beating Florida was huge. So I wrote that pretty strong by design. Caleb, have you looked at the numbers? Because I want you to.
I haven't given it yet. I think we should wait. There haven't been a lot of voters. You kind of worded that wrong. Like, what are people saying yes and no to? Should we reword the poll question?
Reword the poll question if you would like. We can certainly do that. Caleb's better at wording poll questions. I want to remind you portions of the program brought to you by our fantastic friends Double D Pipe.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, Caleb's rewording the poll question. I also had a typo in there. It just wasn't very good. But go ahead, Caleb. Where are we now?
All right, so basically, what was a bigger deal for Tennessee basketball last week? Losing to UK, too many concerns. Beating Florida, that was huge. We're going to let you guys vote on that for a little while, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, the answer is losing to Kentucky. Again, Dave, do you think Tennessee did anything special to beat Florida? I know that. I mean, that's crazy because they're a top 5 team and they won by 20 without 2 starters, but that was about Florida, right?
Yeah, I agree. Even with those starters out, if you had to say who are the best 5 players on the court for either team, who would have more players on their team?
The best 5 on the court for either team?
Yes.
That one's tough. Florida's got some really good starters and really good players.
But you have to, I mean, do you have to include Chaz Lanier? I mean, you get into that discussion of what position you need. We now know that he is a straight up shooter and he's not going to take it to the rack.
And so he's not even a straight up shooter if things are tough because he's a bit of a choke artist.
Yeah, I think it's being a little hard on him, but that's okay. He's a big boy. They're getting paid now, so I don't worry about that nearly as much as I used to. Yeah, my issue with trying to pick a player on Tennessee's team is they do seem so complimentary of each other, which is a positive in some sense, but in another sense, in this day and age of college basketball, I think that you need a guy that can flip the script and he can get you out of a long scoring drought. And I just don't know that Tennessee has that with any of their dudes now.
No, I don't think they do. And you're right. That is a problem. Now, Florida's biggest strength, it's kind of weird. It's their biggest strength is forcing teams to miss threes. I don't know how much of a strength that is, but that's a dangerous type of game to play because someone could shoot well enough from 3, which Tennessee did on Saturday. And if you don't focus enough on offense yourself, you're capable of just a really, really, really bad outing, which is what they did. They gave on Saturday. And so when you, again, I can't look at Saturday and say, outside of Chaz Lanier somewhat answering the moment, even though he was front running, I can't look at Tennessee and say, well, they did look at all the special stuff they did to beat Florida. No, I just think Florida was jacked up a lot of threes and missed them. And I think that you can't compare that to when Tennessee and Kentucky are going back and forth, and Tennessee's got to find a way to manufacture buckets. And you watch that game, right, Dave? They couldn't manufacture buckets when they needed them. They couldn't. Tennessee couldn't.
That's my problem, Caleb.
Yeah.
When's the last great team that they're just that one-dimensional?
And that's what people don't get is because everybody's going to bring up Virginia in 2019, but you know this, as even though they were defensive oriented, they had 5 scorers that could all manufacture a bucket when they needed to, right? When they won the national title. And, you know, these old school Hoosiers basketball watching people that are like, defense wins championships.
No, the voice at this point in the show.
So,
voice.
I'm sorry, but it's true. Like, they're like, if you play, defense travels. Yeah, but you got to shoot well every game in the NCAA tournament, because if you got a bad shooting day, you're probably losing and getting bounced out. And I don't think people understand that concept. Tennessee, I think against most top 10 teams, Tennessee would have lost the way they played against Florida on Saturday. I think they just Florida's got the same problem Tennessee does. This is why Florida's not going to go far in the NCAA tournament either. Because if you're capable of that bad of a shooting day, you're going to end up getting beat in the tournament at some point, because that's just something you can't afford to have happen. And it doesn't have much to do with how good you play defense, because, guys, I keep insisting this. You're going to run into a team that there's no defense you have for how good they shoot the ball from 3. Like that's how it always works in the NCAA tournament. I don't want to bring I'll jokingly bring race into it for a minute, but that team, Dave, that has 4 white guards that they just put all, like, 4 corners, honestly, all around the 3-point line, and they got one big inside that the big may go up, or he'll kick it to one of the 4 guards that's open, and they're just going to hit it every time they shoot. Like, they're just red hot. Those smaller schools from smaller conferences. You know the type of teams I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the Princetons of the world.
Yes.
A lot of backdoor cutting and stuff like that. I don't see how Tennessee could get that sort of talent. I mean, they haven't had problems getting talent, but really the Princeton education is something that weighs heavily into their mindset in recruiting, because that's something. Now, it may not in NIL. I mean, that's the question now, is who's going to spend the most money for the greatest player in high school? That's what it's going to be about, and you make a run.
Well, and the catch is there was the Princeton offense, but also the motion offense back in the day. This is why Duke was so successful. Nobody was really running the motion offense in high school. So when you got to Duke, or when you got to Indiana to play for Bobby Knight back in the day, Krzyzewski and Knight only recruited the smart players that could pick it up quickly. But the thing is, the middle school teams run the motion offense now. Like, everybody's running the motion offense. So, like, by the time you get to college, you're very familiar with it. No one's not running the motion offense anymore. So it's not the same advantage. But that still doesn't change. Like, I'm talking, those sharpshooters, those 4 sharpshooters out around the perimeter. And one of them is always going to be on. And, you're going to run into a team in the NCAA tournament that all 4 of them are hitting. And they all go like 7 of 10 from 3. And so the team goes like 28 of 40 from 3. And the question becomes, can you match it? And if Tennessee hasn't shown that they have the offensive firepower when they're not hitting their threes to match that yet. And that's a big concern for them.
Yeah. We don't want to sound like a broken record, but they put all their faith into Igor, Dubar, and Chaz Lanier. And right now, I don't know that any of them get a passing grade.
You're right. And
been a letdown.
And to be fair to Igor and Chaz, this is where you are right to blame Dubar to a certain degree. I think Rick Barnes recruited Dubar expecting the offense to go through him at the beginning of the year, and it just hasn't worked out that way so far.
Nope. I tell you what they may need. They may need something from Peak IV Hydration. Peak IV Hydration is in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. Just go to peakivhydration.com. Coming up, Steve Hamer will join us. Well, Tennessee could really use a Steve Hamer in his prime. How big would that be?
Yeah, they could. This team really could, because he would replace Felix Okpara, because he would be an offensive threat as well as a defensive threat. And then all of a sudden, now Okpara did play well on Saturday against Florida. I'll give him some credit, but Hamer would do that consistently.
All right, we'll ask him. Steve, Just confirmed, as a matter of fact. I was getting a little bit nervous there for a second. So we'll have Steve Hamer, the man, in 2 minutes. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We're live at the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Well, it depends when you're watching. East Tennessee's largest volume dealer when it comes to Ford and Lincoln. 2 minutes and Steve Hamer.
Well, Ted, looks like you're settling right into your new space.
Affirmative. Powered by the new Ford Lightning.
You know, that would be incredible for camping, tailgating. The options are unlimited. Why don't you take a little power for yourself, buddy?
Beep boop beep bop.
Get into this new 2024 Ford F-150 Power Boost for only $53,300, or get 0% for 72 months on a Ford F-150 Lightning. Come see us today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike, or online at tedrussellford.net.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
Here we go.
It was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, let's try this out. Steve is having a little bit of trouble connecting. Do we want to see? Oh, he's not there yet.
No.
Okay, I think he's called. Yeah, there he comes. I think he's getting tech support. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. So we're going to get to Steve here momentarily, we think. It looks like he's getting dialed in. He just can't hear us, Caleb, which some people would think that's a positive, not hearing us, but we think it's okay. Work Trucks, all about trucks, right place, right time. Trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do that. Contracting, about time. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. Pickup trucks of all sizes. They're fantastic. If you're a contractor, whether you're in Knoxville, they're on Clinton Highway, or downtown Birmingham, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Do we have our fingers crossed? It's been a kind of a rough morning for me and Caleb. He locked himself outside of his house, and we're battling through some Wi-Fi issues. So We need a break, Caleb. I think Steve Hamer's going to bring it right now. Look at that guy. He looks great. Steve, how are you?
Doing really well. Can you hear me?
I got you perfect. Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can. Yes.
Brother, it's one of those
I've
mornings.
often heard that a good craftsman never blames his tools. So I don't know if that's the exception or the norm for me, but I got a new laptop and I don't know how to use it. So I apologize.
No, that is understandable. Like I was saying earlier, Caleb's locked himself out of the house. My thermostat's broke and we're using a hotspot.
Let's go.
We'll see how this goes. All right. So has Mike Keith called you yet and said we got to make this happen?
No, I've had conversations with him, but they have not been akin to the spot that will be opening up, towards the end of the season. I'm hoping and praying that I get an opportunity to be the full-time guy, as I would covet that. I love broadcasting. I love being around the guys and all of the ancillary things that come along with being a color guy on radio. So I'm hoping that opportunity comes to fruition for sure.
All right, you got my vote, no question about it. I'm voting for Steve Hamer right now. And then what's weird is Mike might not have a color guy. I know an analyst. I don't know if you guys remember, but I'm old. John Ward didn't for basketball.
Yeah,
and
he did okay.
Yeah, he did all right. But I would want a guy to be an analyst. There's no question about it. All right, so let's jump into this Tennessee basketball team. As Caleb, I know that you and I discussed beforehand some of the players that are key, but I just want to start, Steve, with we asked the question earlier in the program. Do you take more from as far as determining how far this team goes in March, how championship worthy they are? Do you take more from the loss to Kentucky or the win against Florida?
I take more from the win against Florida, simply because, when you lose to Kentucky at home, which by the way, I don't know that very many people realize that Tennessee is 56-5 over the last few years here at the Food City Center, which is absolutely astounding. It's phenomenal. By the way, a couple of those losses have come at the hands of Kentucky. Three of those losses, actually. We lost a buzzer beater against Missouri, and then we lost to South Carolina just a couple of years ago on our home floor. So that's it for the last few years. So for us to circle the wagons and to be able to come together close-knit without Zakai Ziegler, without a flu-ridden Igor Milicic Jr., and to dispatch and dispose of a team that beat you just a few weeks ago by 30 plus, you in turn take that and you win by 20. After it was pretty close at half, I believe the score was 24-21 at half. Still anybody's ball game, but you had the dedication, the tenacity, the intestinal fortitude, if you will, to put that team away and put your stamp on a season. Not only did that resonate to me, obviously it resonated and registered to a lot of voters across the country, because we rose up to 4, right? After losing on your home floor to Kentucky just a few days prior to that, 7 guys in scholarship in the game, you rose up to number 4 in the country over beating Florida. So I think that I take more from a win against Florida than I did from a loss against Kentucky, because we can talk about all the particulars with Kentucky, man. We didn't shoot the ball well. 11 out of 45, that's not going to cut it. We turned the ball over time after time. Kentucky did not score for the last 5 minutes of that ball game. 5 minutes. So the Wildcats did everything that they could to give us that basketball game, and we just could not take advantage. We couldn't score. That being said, chips are down. We did everything that we needed to against Florida and walked away with a victory.
Steve, I am going to get into the particulars a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Because I want to ask specifically about Chaz Lanier. There were red flags to me, 2 red flags I just want to bring up. In Tennessee's loss at Auburn, Rick Barnes did not call the game-winning shot for Chaz Lanier. he trusted Zakai Ziegler in that moment more. And then against Kentucky, I know people were mad at Zakai for shooting so many threes, but it felt like I noticed a couple of times Chaz Lanier took himself out of the game almost and just stayed in the corner. Then Zakai's not in the game on Saturday against Florida, and Chaz Lanier, to his credit, meets the moment, takes over, goes, I think, 5 of 9 from 3. Is there an issue right now with Chaz Lanier not being aggressive and willing enough to take over games when Tennessee needs him to do that? And did he finally do that against Florida on Saturday?
I don't think so. I don't think that there is an issue as much as I think there is a very steep learning curve for Chaz Lanier. When you go back to Northern Florida, he didn't see the likes of Janai Broome at Northern Florida. He didn't see the likes of the guards in which he's seeing on a night to night basis here in the Southeastern Conference. He didn't see that. And it has taken him a while to adjust to the physicality, to the speed, to the aggression of SEC style play. And I get where you're saying. Don't get me wrong. Look, I see that he has struggled. I see the team as a whole has struggled. Guys, up until the Florida game, do you have any idea what Tennessee was shooting in SEC games alone from the three? We were shooting 23%.
Oh, wow.
From the three in SEC games alone. That's prior to Florida, right? And it didn't get much better, right? Not a whole lot better. So with that being said, I think Chaz, and I'm certainly hoping that this is going to be the case. If you go back to last year and you look at Dalton Knecht, he had a little bit of a lull when it got to SEC play. The book was out. How are we going to guard him? How are we going to, see him coming off screens? Are we going to trail? Are we going to go underneath? We're going to go over top. We're going to help. We're going to hedge. We're going to play gap-heavy defense. And it took Dalton Knecht just a little bit to make sure that he adjusted to the style of play. That's not the case with Chaz. It's taking a little bit longer with Chaz. But I tend to think that someone of his caliber, that's such a great shooter, will make the adjustments eventually. We got a great Hall of Fame coach who I'm telling you, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Chaz, if you will come off of those screens that we're setting for you, if you'll get your feet ready before you catch the ball, you will be a better shooter. Furthermore, if you'll get your feet ready before you catch the ball coming off the screen and you'll utilize a head and shoulders fake, you'll draw fouls and you'll get to the line. And once you get to the line, you'll see the ball go through, and now you'll be ready to play. If he does little things like that, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more and more, I think Chaz is going to be okay.
Man, they were expecting more than okay, Steve.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. We all are. We all are. And I think it was never more evident when your head coach comes out publicly and says, that's what we pay you to do. We pay you to shoot the ball.
I still love that line, even though it's just so by the book. I mean, it's completely legal, and it still blows me away. I remember covering an SEC Media Days one time, and Mark Richt was in there, and there was a brief moment where you could talk about prospects, and the old NCAA rule was you could say, yes, we're recruiting him, or no, we're not. And that's all you could get from coaches. And I remember him looking at the sports information director, Claude Felton, and was like, are you sure I can talk about this guy? Are you sure I can? It's kind of that Rick Barnes comment made me feel the same way.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And certainly we want and need Chaz to play better. We've got another tough stretch of games coming up where, tomorrow night, Missouri is no slouch, man. They're a really tough-nosed, really talented team. They're a lot like the team that they were 2 years ago. And, obviously last year was an anomaly for them going 0-18 in the league. But man, they're a lot like they were 2 years ago, where they're just tough at every position. They're going to guard you at 94 feet. They're going to play good, sound, solid basketball. So you play that team, and then you go on the road at Oklahoma, who they haven't had the best results, but still it's a challenge on the road, Norman, Oklahoma. And then, man, you got Kentucky again, you got Vandy again. So it's not anything easy, but we need Chaz to play better. We need all of our guys to play better. You can't shoot much worse than 23%, man. At some point, you're going to have to knock those shots down. And if they're not going down, I hope and pray that we make the decision to drive the ball to the basket or get our big guy involved. Look, Felix Akpara made one of the best moves he's made all year long against Kentucky. One dribble, turned to the right, head and shoulders fake, got the guy in the air, and he made like a sweet little left-hand layup. We need more of that. Why can't we have more of that?
Yeah.
Beats me. Go ahead, Caleb.
Steve, to that point, interestingly enough, now Louisville turned out to be good and Illinois has turned out to be good, but this is not Rick Barnes' fault. He scheduled as tough as he possibly could in the offseason. It turned out many of the teams that he scheduled turned out to not be as good as we thought they were going to be. Baylor, I'm looking at them more than anybody. So, and it also turned out that the SEC turned out to be way tougher than we thought it'd be, and it was already going to be the toughest conference in basketball this year. How much do you think maybe the schedule not being where they hoped it would be in the offseason maybe didn't adequately prepare them for the SEC right off the bat, and maybe that's why Chaz Lanier and maybe even Igor Milicic are taking a little bit longer to adjust to the SEC game?
I think you're spot on, Caleb. Simply, we talk about it all the time, but Coach Barnes loves to challenge his team, and particularly in the early season, even when you don't think that he is. And I'll give you a prime example. You bring in Montana. Well, people look at Montana and go, it's Montana. I mean, am I fired up to see Montana play? But Montana was picked to finish first in the Big Sky, right? So every particular game in which we play, especially early on in the season, there's a reason, there's a rhyme, there's rationale to go along with that, because more times than not, the teams that we play are expected to contend for their conference championships. Then you load in the Baylor, then you load in the Virginia, then you load in the Miami, and you think, man, these are going to be really good teams. Miami, just a few years ago, removed from being in the Final Four. Jim Larinaga, Hall of Fame coach. Well, guess what? He retires midseason, quits on his team, and then they just kind of tank. Virginia, you thought they'd be a defensive stalwart. They are, but they can't score. Then you look at Baylor. Baylor got taken advantage of on the inside and outside. And all of a sudden, you almost break your own arm patting yourself on the back. Hey, look at what we've done. Yeah, we beat Virginia, Baylor. We've beaten everybody that we needed to. And then you get to SEC play and you find out that, hey, those teams weren't very good, right? The only really, really good team that we played perhaps was Illinois in Champaign. And you were very fortunate to get out of there with a W. Even going back to the exhibition game, Caleb, Indiana, Indiana came in here and beat us on our home floor. Now, Coach Barnes tried some different lineups and did some things, but you thought, man, Indiana's really going to prep us. They're going to be a really good team. Are they? They're middle of the road in the Big Ten, not very good. So I think we took advantage and did the things that we had to do to win the games that we had to win. And then when the SEC gets here, you lose 4 out of your first 9 games. It happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
I totally agree. Talking a little more X's and O's and ball, I do want to say the most positive I took, it's funny you brought his name up, from Tennessee's win over Florida on Saturday, because Florida, the defense was great, but I think Tennessee benefited from just sometimes teams shoot really, really bad from 3. And Chaz Lanier answered the moment, but Felix Opara stepping up offensively with Igor Milicic out seemed like a really big deal, since he can do some things physically under the basket that Milicic can't. How dominant can Tennessee be offensively at full strength if Felix continues to develop offensively like that for Tennessee?
He is I think Felix Akpara is the one guy that I look at and say, if he continues to get better, hear me out. If he continues to get better, we can make a deep run in March and April. If he's already at his ceiling for this year, I don't know how far we can go.
Steve.
I say that because Felix Akpara has all of the intangibles, right? Huge wingspan, great shot blocker, tremendous rebounder, The only thing left is him working on his craft in terms of being able to score the ball. But as far as I know, Caleb and Dave, you can't score if you don't have the ball. I mean, I think that's one of those written rules in basketball. You got to have the ball to score. And he doesn't get a whole lot of opportunities, save the rim running, right? The alley-oops, the dunks. But I really, really believe that if we make a concerted effort to get the ball on the interior and let him operate, let him go to work. He's got soft hands in terms of getting the shot up left or right. Let him go to work and score. I think it opens things up for Chaz. I think it opens things up for Zakai. I don't think we're taking forced threes, last second shot clock threes, which we get in trouble for all the time. And who knows? Maybe if Chaz gets, if Felix gets better and better, maybe he starts to command a double team, and then he kicks the ball, and we have wide open jumpers. But right now, guys, we don't have a guy in the post that even commands a double team. They look at him and go, no, I got him one-on-one. And that's not how the game needs to operate.
Let me ask you this, Steve, big picture question. I think more times than not, a football team gets worse through the season because of the physical toll that it takes on your body. Most of the time. I mean, sometimes you figure out an offense and it's different, or you figure out the defense and it's different. But you just talked about a couple of players that you need to improve during the season. Can you really improve that much during the season, or is there some of this stuff's going to take some off-season work?
I think you can improve during the season. I think, we talked about Chaz Lanier making adjustments to the way that he's being guarded. I think you can improve during the season. I was at practice with Tony White last week, the Wiz.
That was my first ever favorite basketball player.
He's still one of my favorites, man. I was sitting courtside at Pratt Pavilion with him, and we were just talking ball. We were just, I think the younger people say just chopping it up. That's what we're doing. We're talking ball. And after Zakai Ziegler was not in that particular practice, Bishop Boswell was running the point. The amount of growth that I saw in Bishop Boswell last week's practice versus just even a month ago was astronomically different. He had a much better command of the offense. His confidence was through the roof. He's dropping dimes, and he knocked down a really highly contested three-pointer. And you just see him brimming with confidence at that point. So I think you can get better throughout the duration of the season. Now, by and large, most of your game has to take off during the off season, during, May, June, and July. That's when you really got to, get better. But I think that people like Bishop Boswell, people like a Chaz Lanier, I think they can get much, much better. And I don't think, and I can't stress this enough, but I don't think that we've seen the best version of Chaz Lanier yet. I don't think we have.
So, Steve, can I ask you a Lady Vol question real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you.
Steve's strictly against female sports, of course.
Well, Steve was there during I think you were there when Michelle Marciniak and Shamika Holskall won their first national title together. So I'm sure you've been following them with Kim Caldwell this year and what they've been doing. Can I ask you if when people are talking about when Kim Caldwell gets her recruits in and they start scoring at a higher clip with their threes, that they could be deadly, but I see them struggling scoring out of half court sets. Is this Lady Vols team, the way Kim Caldwell's building them, ever really equipped to handle what Dawn Staley does at South Carolina, where she just absolutely overwhelms you inside with her players?
No, we're not equipped yet. We're not equipped yet. And I think that becomes evident and rears its ugly head anytime we play a team with immense size. Like if you go back to Oklahoma, you go back to Texas, where they can score at will on the interior, where they can rebound at will, I think it makes it very difficult for the Lady Vols, especially if we're not knocking down threes. This team is built for speed. They're built to turn you over. They're built to shoot threes at a higher clip. And sometimes if they're not falling, and teams can easily break the press, or teams can have a one-on-one in the post with someone much taller, then that could be our Achilles heel. But I will say this. One of the things that I admire most about Coach Kim Caldwell was not something that she did on the floor. It was something that she did in front of a camera.
I hope he does not have a baby.
No, but man, I admire her because she's tough, man. She came back in a week.
I know, but I don't need video evidence. I've done that twice, and that's enough.
But yeah, we won't go there. But it was something that she said. She was posed a question along the lines of, hey, I know you're excited about this group of girls, but I know you're probably more excited about the group of girls that you've recruited that are coming in next year. And she said, wait a minute. These girls chose to be here. I chose to be their coach. And it's unfair for me to look forward to next year when these group of girls are giving me everything they got this year. I love this team. This is my team, good, bad, or indifferent. So that just resonated with me because these ladies have bought into what she's doing. There may be some shortcomings on this team, but man, they're going to give 110% each and every possession. And whatever we end up with, win or loss, these girls are going to give everything they had, and they're going to make this fan base proud, right? So, size, things of that nature, it's a challenge for us. But man, when we knock down threes, we can beat anybody. And even with the size, Caleb, look at the fact that every game that we've lost, Texas, Oklahoma at home, they've been close games. We've lost by a point or two, by 3 or whatever, because we fall down so far early in the game that we have to battle ourselves back, and it just comes up short. But man, I'm telling you, this team, I'm excited about this team, and certainly excited about the future as well.
Let me ask you this, and it's on our YouTube channel. You can vote right now. We would love for you to be a part of the channel. You win welcome aboard prize, and then you'll be eligible for drawings. All you have to do is be a member of our YouTube channel. Who will be considered the better coach in 10 years? Josh Heupel or Kim Caldwell?
Ooh. Wow.
It's hot heat. It's what I do.
Man, that is some high heat, man. I have to duck for cover on that one. Better coach in 10 years, Josh Heupel or Kim Caldwell? Thinking extemporaneously, just right off the cuff, I'm going to go with Josh Heupel.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I'm going to go with Josh Heupel. I think that if we continue down this road, if we continue to trend in the direction where it's the Wild Wild West, tampering is just evident everywhere, and if we don't have some sort of, and I'm hesitant about using this term, but if we don't make our players accountable, if you will, collective bargaining, if we're not careful, you're going to see a separation of football, men's basketball, and then what's going to happen to your other non-revenue sports?
Well, Title IX theoretically is supposed to protect women's sports. I don't see that changing, but I never thought players would make $2 million a year to play football in college. So I guess that would be my best answer to that. Let me ask you before we let Steve out of here, Caleb, who will be considered the better coach 10 years from now?
So I think, Steve, that's a great point. And I don't think when they passed the Sherman Antitrust Act in the 1880s and then Title IX in the 1970s, I don't think they ever thought that those two would come into direct conflict with each other, which they are now.
Gymnast's great grandmother was living and just celebrating the fact that that law passed back then.
Yeah. So I think I'm with Steve on Josh Heupel. Part of it is because what I know I've seen with Josh Heupel. I'm not saying Kim Caldwell can't do this, but you know this, when you get to a certain level, you can't always run exactly what you've been running your whole career. You got to adjust at SEC play. Josh Heupel, his ability to adjust last year and coach, basically run a run-oriented offense and play ball control, which he had never done before, really stood out. I'm sure Kim Caldwell, when she's faced with that situation, will prove she can do it too. She just hasn't been faced with that situation yet. So I can't make that bet yet.
It's fair. Also, Josh Heupel didn't have to have a baby during the season, which was probably helpful.
It's probably helpful. It's very helpful.
Steve, so what are some key matchups? What do you expect out of the game this weekend? And just kind of give us your thoughts moving forward. It's just, I feel like we're just waiting on Chaz Lanier to emerge, and I don't know when that happens.
Yeah. I expect Tennessee to go 2-0 this week. I expect us to win tomorrow night. I expect us to play better. And we this 3-game homestand for Tennessee, we haven't played great. We had an okay game Saturday, but Florida didn't play well. Our defense really stifled them. We all know what happened at Kentucky. And now you have Missouri. I think we're going to shoot the ball a lot better. I think having Zakai back running the point, if he's available to go, hopefully Igor is going to be available to go as well. I think we're going to play better. I do see it being a close game with Missouri. And then going out to Norman, Oklahoma, I think the first 5 minutes of that game is going to tell the tale. If we come out and we can set the tempo, if we can dictate the way that game is going to be played, I think we can walk out of there with a victory. If the other thing happens, could be trouble. But I expect us to have a 2-0 week this week.
All right, Steve, great stuff as always, buddy. We look forward to continuing to visit with you. It means a lot. I don't know if you can see the message board, but everybody's talking about the great insight that you've given, and we're blessed to have you a part of this team. And let's go to lunch sometime. How about that?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. The last time I went to Bruce Chris, man, I asked about was there a card for Dave Hooker that's been left here?
Yeah.
And
I have had a sushi roll named after me and a margarita. The Hooker roll and
oh God.
Yes, I know. Dave Hooker's Big Orange Off the Hook Margarita, a name so long that you might get withdrawals from not having your alcohol quick enough. But you can get that at the sushi restaurant with the Hooker roll is no longer with us. So that's
and few people know that the Hook and Ladder is actually named after Dave Hooker.
A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, yeah. Didn't know that.
I will tell you something funny now that I can say this about that sushi restaurant. So Tennessee players, football players in particular, could go there and eat for free, and you weren't allowed to do that back then. And I remember the lady saying to me, he ate over $250 in sushi. I was like, man, I'm surprised he had that sort of money. She goes, oh, I comped it. I was like, don't tell me that. I'm still a reporter. I mean, the client relation is important, but I'm still a reporter. Steve, have a blessed day. I do mean it. I'd like to get together with the lunch sometime.
Let's do it, guys. Thank you guys so very much. Honored to join you guys.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good one, Steve.
Hamer is fantastic. I listened to him a couple of different times. I think he would be a great color commentator, but I don't know what Mike wants to do. He's going to do fantastic, and he's got time to think about that and figure that sort of thing out. But I would wholeheartedly endorse Steve Hamer, and there might be even a column that gets written about that before too terribly long. Where are we now? Are we going to stat of the day or this day in Tennessee sports history?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of this day in Tennessee sports history.
I thought that I had it queued and ready.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
know.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, what happened on this day in Tennessee sports history many years ago?
Not too many years ago, funny enough. It's 2 years ago. Today, Tennessee scored a very ugly win at home against Auburn, 46-43. But that was significant because it was their second straight win over Bruce Pearl and Auburn. Because I don't know if people remember, there was a period from roughly 2017 to 2022 where Auburn just flat out owned Tennessee. And there was a Bruce Pearl curse for Tennessee. Where it really stood out, Dave, 2018, Tennessee lost to Auburn at home. If they win that game, they win the SEC title outright. 2019, Tennessee lost on the road to Auburn in their final SEC game of the year. That cost them a share of the SEC regular season title. That same year, in the 2019 SEC Tournament Championship, they got blown out by Auburn. So they cost themselves 3 championships in this streak of losing games to Bruce Pearl that really hurt them. So it was a big deal for them to win a second straight. And honestly, since then, I mean, I know they lost to Auburn on Saturday by 2 Saturdays ago by 1, but since then, Tennessee's actually been very good when facing Auburn for the most part.
Want to be sure and tell you about Newbert Collision Center. For over 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. Let me go ahead and tell you this about Newbert Collision Center. I had an accident, and absolutely, it took forever to get the insurance company to do anything, but not Mr. Newbert. I walk in, he looks at my car, it's diagnosed, boom. Now, if the insurance will just stroke a check, that would be nice. So at Newbert Collision Center, when you get in that accident, they can take care of you. East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work. We have breaking news on a couple of different fronts. It doesn't always happen during the show, but we love it when it does, as apparently Tennessee didn't do a good enough job of recruiting one of their players. This is very intriguing. We'll dive in 2 minutes. Off the Hook Sports. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer when it comes to Ford and Lincoln. Give me 2 minutes. Breaking news after this. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical.
And Here we go.
Guess it was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
We have this little messaging thing that we use so that we're not talking about some of the behind the scenes stuff. And when Caleb says he has breaking news, I get super excited because it doesn't always happen. So we do have breaking news. Caleb, if you can go ahead and throw that in there, we'll have 5 or 4 to watch coming up tomorrow, 4 prospects you need to know about. That'll be on Off the Hook Sports later today if you'd rather read it, but we've got to pay attention to this breaking news. So Caleb, what do you got?
Yeah, so there's a couple of breaking news stories. Do you want the basketball related one or the recruiting related one first?
That's a good question. Let's go with the recruiting one first, because the simple fact is when you start talking about raising ticket prices, everybody kind of complains and then they just deal with it. So let's go with the recruiting one.
So Brandon Anderson, who we know decommitted from Tennessee last month in the Vols 2026 recruiting class, kind of revealed why he decommitted. And I don't know if it's a bad look for Tennessee, but I wonder if this is an issue for Tennessee going forward, which is something you can maybe address. But he says, apparently, and he told 247 Sports, that the reason he opened his recruitment back up was, quote, I felt like I should have more opportunities. Tennessee wanted me to shut down my recruitment after my official visit with them. I didn't like that. I have more interest in other schools too. So I had to decommit and experience my high school time. So long story short, after he committed to Tennessee, the Vols wanted him to shut down his recruitment and not look anywhere else. And I guess he decided that he should reopen his recruitment then. And that's where it comes.
All right, he's a 2026 guy. So this could change 15 times between now and then, right? That's the way.
Right, it could.
He's out of North Cobb. He's an interior offensive lineman at 6'4", 320 pounds. He was a 4-star athlete, and that's out of Georgia. To me, his response is a little bit surprising because he is so highly regarded and where he plays. I think when it's the local kid down the road that's dad played for UT, and you can probably play games with him a little bit, Caleb. I don't think that you can play games with a guy of this ilk. So of all the responses that he could possibly come up with, this one's the most troubling. Now, to defend Josh Heupel for a second, he's right up against the scholarship limit, guys. I mean, right up against it, like 1 or 2 guys away, and they may already be at 85. I understand where Tennessee is going here and trying to strong arm him, but I just don't think he's the type of guy that you can do that to. He's too highly regarded. Florida State, Florida, Georgia, they're all after him. That to me is not the way you handle an upper crust guy.
So you're saying you don't think Tennessee handled it right, telling him to shut down his recruitment?
Yes, in a roundabout way, that's what I'm saying. I think if this was a 3-star kid that's down the road at Powell High School, that you could do this to somebody, and he's going to say, okay, I'm shutting it down. But especially in this day and age, you know, we discussed your contract. I didn't say I got to know by midnight tonight or the deal's off the table. You know, that just seems like common sense to me.
Well, yeah, and it depends on the caliber. You're right. We talked about when he decommitted that we think that they may not be as high on him as a lot of other schools are. And there's a possibility that maybe the reason they wanted him to shut down his recruitment is they thought he could be a valuable piece for them that could work out, but he's not worth the energy to try to make sure they stay here. You covered Eric Berry's recruitment.
You say that, though, but he was a 4-star out of the Atlanta area, and we ad nauseum talk about how important that is.
That's true. No, that's a good point. So I'm wondering, I can't imagine they do this with everybody. Where it comes to me, it's like, so you covered Eric Berry's recruitment, right? Back in 2007. Now he took if I remember correctly, he did take all the visits. But he was always Tennessee, wasn't he? There wasn't much Fulmer had to do to land him, right? Like they knew he was going the whole time.
I would have been very surprised had he gone anywhere else. Very surprised. I never saw the angle he did play quarterback, so I wondered if maybe he'd want to play some offense and somebody could offer him that. But I never felt like there was a realistic threat to his recruitment.
Right. And I think the coaches knew that, so they didn't mind him taking all the visits, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I think he was probably silently committed for 3 or 4 or 5 months before he went public.
I think so too.
I mean, let's put it this way. I don't drive to various cities for a guy that I think might go to Tennessee. I was pretty sure that he was going. I mean,
so
isn't it also I could start touring middle schools if I wanted to.
Isn't it also like if you got a guy committed to you, if you think you're safe with him, don't you want him taking other visits to waste those other schools' time? And then maybe you could go target one of their other schools?
No, I don't think you ever want, silent or not, I don't think you ever want a commitment going somewhere else. There's just too much that can change. I'll give you a great example. Do you remember a name, Jason Respert?
Yes.
Okay. He was one of the most stand-up dudes I ever covered. A great guy. He was committed to Tennessee. He went to Florida, and it would stun me if he did something illegal just from covering him at the time that I did. But he was accused of some sort of assault. And that a lot of people thought that they basically set him up because he didn't really want to go to Florida and they just wanted him to get there for a visit. Now that's worst case scenario, but no, I don't want my kids. That's like telling your kids they can go play in the street. That doesn't seem like a good spot to be in.
No, so it's a tricky situation on how to maneuver this. I think maybe you're winning me over that you let him do the visits, but you just got to do the work to make sure they stay. You don't want to make the Les Miles mistake. You may not know this, Dave, but do you know the Les Miles mistake of what he did in 2007 that really killed his credibility on the recruiting trail?
I don't think I'm aware of that. 2007?
It was when Nick Saban took the Alabama job.
Okay.
And he thought he could cobble the coaches to all collude to screw over Alabama. So there was a player that was leaning LSU, may have actually even been committed to LSU, but it wasn't signing day yet. And Nick Saban sent him an offer, and he was going to Alabama to visit. Because he was going over to Alabama to visit, Les Miles pulled the offer. And he thought he could get all these SEC coaches to collude to like pull offers to like basically blackball Alabama. That's one of the stupidest things ever done in recruiting, right?
Well,
and
Nick Saban has better recruiting ties in Louisiana than Les Miles had.
I know that, right?
It's not even state. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, he walks in a high school room. They're like, "Hey, coach, thanks for stopping by and taking a look at our kids." I mean, he's like a rock star when he walks in those places.
Yeah. So all that did was screw over Les Miles and his reputation. So I guess I'm bringing that up because I'm saying you're right. You're hurting your credibility to a certain degree. But so do you think Brandon Anderson decommitted because it was because he wanted to take the visits, or do you think he took it personal that they wanted him to shut down his recruitment and he thought that was wrong?
Well, I'll throw another theory at you, but I look at his rating and that doesn't feel like this could be the scenario. What if they told him you need to drop 10, 15 pounds and really hit the weight room? What if there were academics? We don't even discuss that. That used to be the biggest thing in the world. Kids all the time. Are they academically eligible? How are their grades? I mean, there could be a million different things going on, but it doesn't seem like to me this is the guy that you could toy with. He's too highly regarded. Now, they might not think so. They may have him. They've got a board up, and they've got green, yellow, red. They may have him as a yellow. A yellow means that just keep in touch with him. Let's see what happens. In other words, you need to develop. That's not uncommon with the big guys, but obviously he's not a green because you don't have that type of leverage when you go get those guys to say you can't take any more visits.
Yeah. So they threw other stipulations that he didn't want to come out and say, basically. But that's possible. How big was he again? I'm pulling it up now.
330 range last I checked.
Well, that's kind of what 320. Okay, that's kind of what they want for their interior linemen, though. I mean, Javonte Spraggins was bigger than that.
Yeah, but you and I both know there's good big and there's bad big, and I'm not accusing him of being out of shape, but sometimes that you could add some more muscle and be a little bit lighter. I don't know. I don't know ultimately what it came down to, but Tennessee to strong arm somebody, that's something that Nick Saban could do in his prime. If Tennessee wants to go win 3 or 4 national championships and then start strong arming people, that would be the time to do it. I don't think that now it's going to be effective whatsoever. And it
No,
wasn't.
It wasn't. But again, it could be possible they're not really losing sleep over losing him, because it's weird that they would strong arm him like that. They would have to know that you can't strong arm that way. So I a part of me thinks they know what they're doing, and they may not apply this to everybody. I don't think college football is in a situation now. You tell me, Dave, is college football in a situation where an old school coach could step in and say the same rules and stipulations apply to every recruit and every player, no matter what?
I don't know. And I don't know why Tennessee would be concerned about a prospect visiting elsewhere. Maybe a culture or a girl or whatever wins him over. But Tennessee's not one of those schools. And I remember UConn tried to do this a lot. And you can imagine how that went under Randy Edsall. Didn't go well. And it probably cost him his job. And Tennessee is not going to have a prospect come back to them and say, man, those facilities are a little bit nicer than yours. Your culture is not quite as good as to me,
there's one theory that.
Okay, I'll take a theory. Lay it on me.
Okay, the root of this visit was Florida State. As we know, Florida State has just recently poached 3 Tennessee players: Jason Jenkins, Squirrel White, and a former Tennessee player who was at Memphis, Elijah Herring. And I think Josh Heupel, does he feel threatened by Mike Norvell and Florida State and what they're doing right now? And is that what he's worried about?
When you're in college football recruiting, you're always afraid of everybody and everything that goes boom in the night. I mean, yes, you don't want him going to Florida State. Maybe he was maybe Jenkins was his host on a visit. But no, you don't want him to go to Florida State. But I would
going to Florida State and having a defensive lineman as my host. I want some better hosts than that. I want a hostess.
Well, that's kind of the setup person. They get you to the right places.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's not the end result. Come on, Caleb. Don't let your mind go there. Tennessee raising their ticket prices. Let's get into that, because this is a little bit surprising to me. In a micro scale, like right now, this is the time. Macro, it's just going to continue to go up, the prices of what we watch and attend. But what can you tell us about ticket increases? Because this also broke while we were on the air. Thank you, UT.
Yes, this comes, by the way, after they just announced massive upgrades to Food City Center at Thompson Bowling Arena over the weekend. So there's a lot of upgrades coming to the arena. They're trying to make it more luxury and cooler, and be able to enjoy some things. And I think they're doing like a riverside view from it now. Is one of the things they're trying to work on, where you can it kind of like an indoor out where you can see the river and see the game. Pretty much, I think they're trying to set something up like that. So
seems aggressive. Aren't there structural issues that you have to be aware of there?
Probably. But, Thompson Bowling Arena right now is a giant warehouse.
I ever tell you about the time that I got a tip from a guy who was a Knoxville building inspector, and he said that one side of Neyland Stadium is going to fall down pretty soon. And I ran that story down for the long and never got confirmation on it. But supposedly, a little bit later, they did some structural things underneath. So I don't know how you do that at Thompson Bowling Arena, but I'm all for it.
Yeah. Actually, I did know about that, because I remember when Mike Hamilton, to his credit, took the hit and started reducing the capacity at Tennessee, and it was for safety reasons. So it didn't shock me that was happening at the time.
Yeah. I said, which area of the stadium is most vulnerable? Said right under the press box. I'm thinking, that's great. I'm going to be watching a North Texas game, and suddenly the whole building's going to fall down. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, so after these updates, they come around and they say on Tuesday that they are going to increase ticket prices for basketball by 6% and non-premium seating ahead of the 2025-26 season. Let me be very clear on this, Dave. This is in addition to the 10% talent fee that's being added on the ticket prices. So that is a 16% increase in ticket prices for Tennessee basketball. If you're a season ticket holder and non-premium seating, you just had your ticket prices go up 16%. Tennessee's expected to generate about $7 million in gross annual revenue from the increase in ticket costs. And that paired with the talent fee, it would put Tennessee in the top third of the SEC in annual basketball revenue. Yeah, so basically this comes after the upgrades to Thompson Bowling Arena were announced. Renovations included new video boards, an updated sound system, and the addition of a riverside club space on the arena's lower level. And 1,500 seats will have access to the newly updated club space on the venue's riverside. The area will offer various food and beverage options, as well as a club area for socializing before the game or during halftime. So
I realized recently that I'm like the worst person to socialize in a sporting event because I watch it and I just stare at the game and I don't cheer. And yeah, my son's like, "Why are you not more excited?" That was a while back. But all right, Caleb. So I'm going to say bank on it that this will not affect the number of tickets they sell. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All right, Caleb, it is our poll question. It is, do you feel price gouged by UT? 67% say yes, it has to stop. 33% said no, support the team, just because I like talking like David Putty from Seinfeld.
Oh my gosh, by the way, David Putty's also Joe from Family Guy. He's the voice of Joe from Family Guy.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. He's hilarious. He was the Mimbo, the man bimbo. So right now, 80% said it has to stop. Oof. I just wonder at what point this actually affects attendance. I mean, I don't think it is now. We know that they've been sold out for a few years, especially with the football side. I would be more careful, though, Caleb, with messing around with basketball and raising ticket prices too flippantly, because football is always going to be number one. People are going to show up for that in that stadium to watch a game that Derek Dooley is coaching in. They did. So I would just be really careful about how I handled the basketball end of it. You still want that to be a friendly, fun environment, and you don't want to walk out the door saying, "I just paid $500 for that."
Yeah, basically what it's going to do is it's going to put pressure. You got to make sure the basketball team is always putting on a show and entertaining and good, giving the fans something to cheer for. I think Tennessee's got enough of a loyal fan base right now that they'll accept this and they'll accept the premium seating and everything like that. But it's something you bring up that's very relevant, particularly with your poll question. And I don't do this for college, but I guess I should. But Dave, I've always done it for pro sports. Have I told you the biggest scam I consider in just business? The biggest business scam in history. You know what it is?
Yeah.
When professional sports owners, they tell you that you should support your hometown team even when they're losing because you should be loyal. That's code for, even if I give you a crappy product, you should buy my product. What other business are you allowed to do that in?
No, I've never liked that. I've always thought the same thing. Yeah, you want to go out there and throw up some Final Fours and you want to do that sort of thing. I'm all down for that. But it just makes me wonder if Tennessee's overextended themselves on some things, because this is the second increase in 2 months, right about there?
Yes. And look, we found out they're way more behind in NIL than we thought. We thought they were way ahead of the curve. But look, guys, it's going to get uglier because I can't stress this enough. I can't stress how big of an impact that SEC versus Big Ten TV revenue is going to have on NIL spending. And the Big Ten, every Big Ten school makes an NIL budget in football more than every SEC school in TV revenue now. And that is not a good situation to be in. And when I say NIL budget, Dave, I don't mean a Mississippi State NIL budget. I mean an Ohio State NIL budget from last year, okay? So every Big Ten school makes what Ohio State spent in NIL money last year. Every Big Ten school makes that much more now than every SEC school in TV revenue. So Tennessee and other schools have to figure out a way to negotiate, because spoiler alert, Greg Sankey can tell you whatever he wants to tell you. The SEC ain't getting out of that contract. It is the biggest steal for ESPN possible.
Well, getting back to the decommit, I will say this. If I'm Josh Heupel, I prefer to know that now as opposed to when he got on campus. I'm not saying he is, but if he's a me guy, I don't need that. You're either kind of all on board with me or not. And right now it feels like he's, I don't know. Recruiting, should it be viewed as it should be viewed as a commitment? When you make a commitment, you keep your word.
Got to sign some we're getting back to the NAL thing. This is maybe why they're doing this is why they're spending more at Food City Center.
Okay.
They want money to make you, maybe you don't sign a letter of intent, but you sign a contract that you have to honor.
Well, I think that's a matter of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Maybe it's a great topic for tomorrow. Probably is. Or maybe you want to write something on it. I think this would be interesting. What's the key to winning in the NFL? It's to have either an elite quarterback or a young quarterback that you're not paying a lot of money to, so you can spend money elsewhere in free agency.
Yep.
Did Tennessee go about the Nico thing all wrong?
Not for when they did it. But we'll have to see how that plays out long term.
Okay, but let me offer you this. If he's making $2 million a year, which I've talked to somebody who saw the contract, they know that's right, and it's gone up since then. If I told you that you could have George McIntyre coming in and you've got 4 blue chip offensive linemen, you're the one that's always telling me to spend more money on players, and I got 4 elite offensive linemen, then I would probably do that.
This is part of this is a system-based thing, Dave. I don't think if the receivers are actually athletic and running the right routes and the quarterback's good, I don't think pass protection is that important in this offense, honestly.
Well, that's why it's a way to win with less talent, and it worked in 2022 when a lot of teams got caught by surprise. Will it continue to work? I don't know. But basically what we've decided today on the program is that Tennessee may have run a guy off. Trooper Taylor needs to come back. It's been a heck of a show. Go back and listen to the whole thing. We greatly appreciate it.
And also, just random, I got to ask you a random question before we go, Dave, because I know you're a big hip-hop connoisseur more than me. What'd you think of Kendrick Lamar's diss track winning a Grammy for Record of the Year? That's if you're Drake, that's really humiliating, isn't it? That a diss track to you wins Record of the Year?
Yeah, I guess. I like Kendrick Lamar a little bit. I'm coming around. I'm moving into the 2020s.
He called Drake a certified pedophile in that one Record of the Year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, my daughter has just shared the okay stuff with me. I don't get this. She will share some songs, but I think she purposefully doesn't send me songs like that.
Yes.
That's not something you share with your parents.
No, it's not. Kendrick Lamar threw some horrible accusations at Drake, and then that goes and wins Grammy for Record of the Year. If you're Drake, you got to go hide and cower in a corner, don't you? You need to just hide forever.
Drake always seemed like a funny name to me. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. We're with you each weekday at 10 a.m. All you have to do, if you would like a Hound Dogs gift certificate, is just sign up for our channel. You get that welcome prize, and then we're going to have weekly prizes, and we're going to give away that John Henderson autographed helmet that's right behind my big fat head. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, banksandjones.com, or go to Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios to pick up that Bronco, which I'll give you more updates on that. I'm close. The insurance company is